As Trevor Bauer's #1 fan, boy, it feels good to watch him rack up double-digit strikeout games again. Welcome to Fantasy Baseball today on a Monday, July 27th. Frank Stanfield alongside Scott White, Chris Towers, and Adam Azer. Guys, I tried to tell you about Trevor Bauer. You just wouldn't listen.
I mean, Trevor Bauer, Giancarlo Stanton, Eric Hosmer, you were right there on every single one of them. Miguel Rojas, and we just didn't listen.
Oh, gosh. Guys, it was a crazy weekend in baseball, and we have a lot to get to. What's going on? Adam, you said that you were going to hijack the show right from the get-go and tell us the craziest thing that happened this weekend.
No, the craziest thing that happened to me was I dropped an entire can of spaghetti sauce on the floor while I was taking groceries Saturday. That was terrible.
You have spaghetti sauce in cans?
No, jar, glass jar.
You dropped a glass jar?
Yeah, the jar didn't crack, thankfully.
All right, I'm gonna be Twitter right now. You could just make your own sauce.
I mean, you could. Please. It takes like 45 minutes.
Dude. Rayo's tomato sauce is like an entirely different meal. It is the greatest thing I've ever found. Okay, anyway, I was gonna tell you the biggest winner. Frank, you want the biggest winner from the weekend?
Sure, why not? Let's start off with it.
I'm not sure that this actually exists, but if you could find a fantasy team that faced Charlie Morton, Lucas Giolito, and Matt Boyd this week, that would be the biggest winner in fantasy baseball.
I would have been really happy with that as my top three in a rotation. I would have been thrilled. There might be leagues where I have that.
Well, there is a league where Frank has that, and I'm facing him in that league. So, off to a good start. I am anyway.
Yeah. And I tweeted about that on Friday. Actually got quite a few likes and responses there. Wasn't really the greatest Friday for me, I've got to say. Having Matt Boyd, Lucas Giolito, and Charlie Morton in the lineup. So, yes, you're off to a fantastic start there, Adam. Before I get into everyone else's winners or losers, I think that we obviously have to touch on the biggest news of the day. And I think that is obviously Justin Verlander, who originally was going to be shut down for the season with an elbow injury. And then after the game, Astros manager Dusty Baker was like, no, just kidding. We're going to clarify this situation right now. He has a right forearm strain and will be shut down, quote, for a couple of weeks. Scott, are you actually buying that?
I think I'm buying that. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that it won't be a season-ending injury. I don't think they have MRI results back, and just the nature of any pitching injury that's going to shut down a pitcher for a couple weeks, that could turn into a season ender in a 2-month season. So there were sources familiar with the situation saying it was an elbow injury and he'd be shut down for the year. I don't know exactly how familiar they were with the situation, but you could imagine that game of telephone happening where, one of the Astros higher ups for, concerns about the MRI or concerns about just the timeline for a recovery. They're fearful he's going to be out for the year, and that got turned into he is out for the year, but we don't really know how long he's going to be.
Purple monkey dishwasher.
Like Justin Verlander is famously a all news is fake news. Don't believe anything you hear unless I say it guy. Like he hates the media. And this thing where it's it's 100% incorrect that I have an elbow injury.
Yeah, because Verlander followed up and tweeted about it.
I have a forearm strain, which is, and it's no, dude, that's the same thing. Come on. It's essentially the same thing. The forearm's connected to the elbow. That's.
Don't drop him yet, but don't acquire him either, because I think I don't be surprised if he's out for the season.
That's my expectation. I'll be the pessimist.
That's way too risky of a buy low situation right now. So I agree 100%. Look, for some people that own Justin Verlander, I think that they are obviously panicking right now, rightfully so, and they're going to look to the waiver wire. I don't know if it's too early for trades. I don't think it's ever too early for trades, especially in the shortened season. You got to make things happen now.
Playoffs start in 5 weeks, guys.
Yeah, I mean, what are you waiting for? Some of the top waiver wire starting pitcher targets that I could think of. There was some news earlier today that Spencer Howard will make his debut for the Philadelphia Phillies on Friday. He's 29% owned. Sandy Alcantara, 61% owned for the Marlins. Nate Eovaldi, 57% owned. Brady Singer, 20% owned, looked pretty good in his debut over the weekend. Steven Matz, someone who I was very impressed with. Highest velocity that we've seen, I believe it was since 2016, you mentioned, Chris, before we started here, 64% owned. Chris, I'll go to you on this one. Which one of these starting pitchers would you be most interested in off the waiver wire?
So I actually wrote the reaction on cbssports.com/fantasy about Justin Verlander's injury, and they're not necessarily in any order, but this is roughly the order I would go with. Sandy Alcantara, that was just the best I've ever seen him looked by far, and he was pretty good to close out last season, but
Homer.
he was getting, the Marlins are in first place, baby. Let's go.
You're not wrong.
No, I've been a very loud Sandy Alcantara. Jesus, I am really struggling with that name. Sandy Alcantara skeptic, but the command was there. He was pitching up with the sinker or up with the fastball, got 6 swinging strikes with the changeup. I think that's the best he's looked by far. His velocity was actually up, which is hard to do when you throw as hard as he does already. Brady Singer was really impressive. 14 swinging strikes on 80 pitches, only threw the changeup twice. And one of the things about Brady Singer was, coming up through the minors and then in camp and going back to spring training, there was talk about, the changeup was improving. We didn't need it in the first game against a very tough Cleveland Indians lineup at home. The slider looked really good. Dylan Bundy looked great. De-emphasized the fastball, got a bunch of swinging strikes with the slider. Look, Corbin Burns wasn't great, but the stuff was awesome. I still want to believe Ross Stripling was really good today. Steven Matz, like you said, excellent. Tyler Chatwood, another guy who only 9% rostered. He's always had really good stuff and got back to throwing hit the arsenal that he threw in 2018 with a lot more cutters and a lot more curveballs, and only had 2 walks in 6 innings in his debut against a tough Brewers lineup. And Spencer Turnbull, another guy who looked really good, another guy who threw his slider more, de-emphasized his fastball. So those are the guys that I wrote about in the Justin Verlander story to consider. Obviously, none of them are going to replace what you thought you were going to get from Justin Verlander, but there's plenty of potential on the waiver wire right now at starting pitcher, and there's a lot of starting pitchers worth dropping right now.
Scott, I have a bold prediction. I don't know if it's going to be the next time through the order because they're going to wait until after this service time, which I believe is this Thursday, which is July 30th or Wednesday. It's either Wednesday or Thursday,
I think,
that they can actually call prospects up and have an extra year of service time. The next time that Forrest Whitley would be eligible to be called up and take Verlander's spot in the rotation, I think that he will be in the rotation. He is 23% owned. Pure speculation. It's just a bold prediction of mine. I would be looking to add him as well if you can stash somebody.
They don't really have any other options.
Scott don't like it.
Peacock.
What do you mean?
He's got a shoulder. He's got a shoulder injury.
What about
Brad
Christian
Peacock-
Javier? What about Brian Abreu? Like,
Yeah,
look to
those-
the guys who were actually competing for a rotation spot with like Framber Valdez before. There's another guy whose name I can't think of because he's not much of a prospect. But I feel like
Brandon Bielik.
yeah, that guy. Yeah. Yep. I feel like they would turn to any of them before Whitley, considering Whitley wasn't really in the mix in the first place.
Wow. I did not even realize that Brad Peacock went on the IL.
Yeah, he's
That
got
is
shoulder
my
soreness.
bad. He has shoulder soreness, and that's a shame because he's had some success as a starter. I just got to say, Chris gave a lot of names there. Ross Stripling has to be at the top of the list, and he's probably the most owned, but he's only 66% owned. So that's the first place I'd go. As the guy who was skeptical of Corbin Burns when we talked about him last week, I was very impressed because he had no fastball command in that start, and he still managed to do a respectable job against the Cubs, basically using his off-speed pitches, and he developed the third pitch. So that gives me some hope. One of the things that's difficult first time you see a player for a season is the thing that separates the men from the boys, I guess, is can you get through the lineup the third time? And we still don't know that for a lot of guys. Burns, that's the biggest issue I have with him. I mentioned it. Yes, it was a small sample, but third time through the order, opponents hit over 500 against him. And as a 2-pitch pitcher, that's a problem. But I think it was the changeup that he added, and he pitched pretty well with it. So I'm actually more optimistic now than I was, even though that the numbers weren't good. If you didn't see the start, I would not drop Corbin Burns. I would think about adding him. Garrett Richards, I'm not sure if you said him, Chris.
Yeah,
that's
looked
another
good
guy.
today.
There are a lot of pitchers out there. Yeah, Chris is right. A lot of pitchers out there that are pretty exciting right now. They're not going to be Verlander, but Stripling to me would have to be number one. 66% owned. It's just too low.
That Stripling start.
He
in my
improved
mind,
his changeup, by the way. I just want to add that Stripling improved his changeup. Go ahead, Scott.
Like I thought he was must own even before that start, must have. But like I was not expecting 7 innings so
92
easily
pitches.
from him. 92 pitches. Like, that was the past 2 years. He had only gone 7 innings twice. And here he does his first start of the season when you see some pitchers going less than 5.
Well, you know, he
And-
probably could have gone 7 innings if he was pitching in AAA.
Against the Giants?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Giants are pretty bad. But I mean, how do you not know? Like, what has he done as a starting pitcher that says Ross Stripling should not be
Right.
close
He
to
was
100%?
He was an all-star in 2018 as a starting pitcher, and then they kind of moved him out of that role in the second half and kept him in the swingman role basically all of last year. So, and now, you know, coming into the season, I thought he was ahead of Alex Wood. I mean, I thought he was behind Alex Wood in the pecking order. Obviously, he was. They gave Wood a spot first, but this first turn, it might have been enough to move him ahead of Wood. Wood wasn't so great his first time through. He wasn't so bad either. Like, I'm not going to drop Alex Wood all of a sudden. He did get a lot of swings and misses for the 69 pitches, I think it was, he threw. But the narrative, what we like so much about Alex Wood as a sleeper, was he had upped his velocity to 92, 93 supposedly, and it wasn't there. In his first start, it was like 90, which is, you know, traditionally more where Alex Wood resides.
Yeah.
Frank, give me your 3 starting pitchers to add.
I like a lot of names that Chris hit on. In terms of being actually available, I think Sandy Alcantara, I'm right there with you, but he's 61% owned.
Yeah.
Nate Eovaldi, I thought, looked very good in his first start. Didn't get a lot of swings and misses, not a lot of strikeouts. But I would say Sandy Alcantara, Nate Eovaldi, and let's go with, if Steven Matz is out there, I would like to add him too. I love the fact that his velocity was up over 94 miles per hour, and he did it against a really, really strong Atlanta Braves lineup. So if any of those 3 are available, and then if you're in deeper leagues, I do like Spencer Howard and Brady Singer. But those are names I'm looking at.
So you drop Corbin Burns and or Garrett Richards. Corbin Burns, Garrett Richards. How do they compare to the 3 you just mentioned?
I would keep both of those guys. I would keep Corbin Burns and Garrett Richards. I thought Garrett Richards looked great over the weekend as well. The velocity was up for him. He was throwing 95, 89, 90 with the slider as well. Looked really, really strong, Garrett Richards. So I would hold on to both of those guys comparatively to some of these names that we just mentioned. Adam, real quickly before I want to hit some news and notes, we don't talk about buying high on a player often, but you sound so incredibly high on Ross Stripling, and rightfully so. I think if you can acquire him now and people don't realize how good he's going to be for the remainder of the season, that this is one of those situations where you might want to consider buying high, which is something you just don't normally hear in fantasy.
Yeah, look, he's another guy. He gives up a lot of home runs, like 3rd time through the order. I think that's kind of the issue with him. But he, 2 pitchers or 3 pitchers, I guess, that improved their changeup, it seems, since last year. Corbin Burns, Ross Stripling, this is just from what I gathered from the broadcasts, and Kyle Hendricks threw a complete game shutout. And apparently, like, his changeup is much better than it's ever been, which is just weird for a guy at his stage in his career. Maybe that's a buy high. Stripling, like, I don't want to overreact. He's 66% owned. I think he should be 90% owned. I don't think he's going to be like an all-star again, and I don't think he's going to carry your team. But I do think he's must-own. So if that kind of, straddling your question there, but not buy high is, I guess, typically reserved for like someone who's like 90% owned or something, But Stripling, I just think you need to add him, and he should be one of your best back end of your fantasy rotation options.
Some news and notes to hit. Mike Moustakas, after having a great game on Friday, was placed on the IL today. He woke up not feeling well. It's worth mentioning that his teammate Matt Davidson went on the COVID IL Saturday. Nick Senzel also not feeling well. So you can read the tea leaves there. Another situation with the Miami Marlins where they have 4 players who have tested positive for COVID. And I believe tomorrow they're basically getting off their flight and going straight to the ballpark, which is the last thing that I heard, which...
It's right there. I mean, the good news, it's like 2.5 miles away. So.
Yeah. So this situation is ever evolving, obviously, trying to play a fantasy baseball season and an actual baseball season throughout this pandemic.
Hey, Frank, I'm going to be off the show soon. I'm only going to hang around for a little bit. So I just need to say, right now, if you're a commissioner of your league, you need to put in, rules of what's going to happen if the season gets canceled. You have to have specific rules in terms of payouts for when it gets canceled. For example, in one league that I'm the commissioner of, we pay out this money to these people if the season ends here. But for me, I said if it ends before week 6, everybody gets their money back, or nobody's paid yet. But so just don't leave any questions. Don't leave any room for debate or for arguments. Right now, make sure you have a system in place. I'm sorry to say it, but 2 teams appear to be having an outbreak right now, and they didn't even play against each other. Have something in place right now so there are no arguments, no fights if the unfortunate outcome happens, which fingers crossed it won't. All right, I'm done hijacking the show. Sorry.
Yeah, we said last week that in one of my leagues, it's if we get past August 31st. So basically, if we play into September, your league is valid at that point. But yes, you should have rules in place, especially if players go on the IL midweek and they're in your lineup. That's something that you have to discuss with people in your league as well. Steven Strasburg was scratched from his start on Saturday. Apparently, he has had numbness in his hand for weeks. So doesn't seem to be an update on him, but obviously a situation to pay attention to. Adam, you're shaking your head.
Yeah, because Chris drafted him. We knew this was going to happen, Chris.
Yeah. Something else we knew that was going to happen. Rich Hill was scratched from his start on Saturday. Remember when we were all so excited about Rich Hill?
Yeah.
Scott, do you have any, what's the latest on Rich Hill?
Oh, it does. My understanding is it's not injury related. They just pushed him back. I guess so he could get another throwing session. You just don't believe anything today, Frank.
No, I am a natural cynic, especially when it comes to a player like Rich Hill being pushed back and they're saying it's not for injury reasons.
He's on the schedule for
2021.
Spend all day making notes and then you can't find what you need when the
he's going to be a pitching coach next week.
You got to look.
Year.
It's 2020. You got to digitize these.
Control
notes,
F, Scott.
I have a lot. Look, Control F when you do them in Notepad. If the cursor is past the point you're Control F.
You should be using paintbrush.
Not there.
Use paintbrush, Scott. Come on, what is this?
He's scheduled to go Wednesday. Rich Hill.
All right. Well, we'll see if it actually happens. I hope it does because I do have a few shares myself. Corey Kubler left his start today with shoulder tightness after I believe it was just 1 inning pitched. Everyone's just dropping like fly.
There is 100%. There might be a team where I have Rich Hill, Steven Strasburg, and Corey Kluber.
I mean, you're kind of asking for it at that point, Chris.
Seriously,
if we're being honest.
Stanton's on that team too, I'm sure.
Yes, Eloy Jimenez,
best player in fantasy.
Looked great over the weekend. He hit a back-to-back home run with Edwin Encarnacion. He ran into a wall today while trying to catch a ball that actually went over the fence. He left with lightheadedness, and it seems like he might have some concussion symptoms, so something to pay attention to for Eloy Jimenez. And Ken Giles left Sunday as well with an apparent elbow injury. His velocity was way down. Scott, we've already received multiple questions regarding this situation. Who is the guy in Toronto?
Probably won't be one guy at first. If I had to put money on somebody, I'd put it on Anthony Bass.
Yeah.
I need a lot of saves help. I have not put in a claim for Anthony Bass. So that shows you my level of confidence there.
All right. Fair. I think Rafael Dolis is also in the mix. They basically swapped positions, him and Anthony Bass over the weekend. One of them pitched the 7th, and then the other one pitched the 8th, and then the next day they swapped positions. So Anthony Bass did have 5 saves for the Blue Jays last season. I think that he is the next man up for the Blue Jays.
Can I ask also, there are other closer situations here to monitor.
Oh, sure.
I don't know if you're going to talk about that, but I'd like to know which relievers you guys are picking up because, I'm very worried about Sean Doolittle, who pitched in the 8th today in a tie game, not against the heart of the order. His velocity was down. Raisel Iglesias blew a save.
No, that was a non-save situation.
Oh, that's right. And he stinks in non-save situations, which is weird.
It's like a Ken Giles situation from a couple of years ago.
Nick Anderson didn't get the save.
The
save opportunity. They used him in the 7th.
Oliver Drake
got used in the 6th, I think.
Greg Holland struck out the side. So
there's 2 saves now, right? Greg Holland?
I don't.
No, Wade Davis and
Wade
Joe
Davis
Jimenez.
has 2 saves for the Rockies.
There you go.
Yeah, same guy.
They're the same guy in my head, yeah.
So who are you guys trying to pick up? I was too late to the party. Everybody picked up, everybody basically.
Yeah, there was basically one guy, 1.5 guys in all of baseball who I put in. I actually made a point to try for really hard in FAB. The biggest, and I think I won him in every Fab League I'm in, was Greg Holland. Like I said, I need a lot of saves help. He is the one surprising, got the guy who got a save this weekend that surprised everybody, and I think it might actually mean it's his job because, like you guys said, Ian Kennedy worked like the 6th and the 7th in that same game. And just the way Matheny was talking, like he didn't go so far as to say Greg Holland's our closer now, but like, he didn't not say that either. Greg Holland struck out the side. He was throwing harder than he did last year in that appearance. And, obviously has a history in that role. So I put in some big bids for Holland everywhere. Like I said, all my 5x5 leagues, I went cheap on saves like I normally do. I need to get that category filled earlier in the year than I normally would. So Holland was the big guy I splurged for. The second guy, for what it's worth, that I put in, that I made an effort for was the Royals rookie, whose name is escaping me, Singer. Yeah, that was the other guy, but that's not really part of the saves discussion. So I'll let you guys have the floor.
Greg Holland is 8% owned in CBS Sports Leagues right now, so he is widely available. Again, Kennedy pitched the 6th and the 7th inning on Saturday. Trevor Rosenthal is someone who I thought might have an opportunity in this in the back end of this bullpen because he has a history with Mike Matheny. He pitched in the 8th inning in this game, and just pulling up some names of people who got saves this weekend. For the Orioles today, a gentleman named Cole Sulser. Don't know anything about it.
Yeah, that was a weird one.
He picked up the save on Sunday. Somebody for the Mariners named Taylor Williams.
Yep.
Taylor Williams picked up the save today. Matt McGill, someone who we thought might be in the mix for saves there. He pitched in the 5th inning. And Taylor Williams' career in the minors, 3.05 ERA, 1.16 WHIP, 295 strikeouts, and 277 and a third innings pitched. And he had 11 saves in the minors. So those are a couple other names to consider in deeper leagues. Chris, is there anyone that you wanted to add in terms of relievers if you're chasing saves?
Not right now.
Well, Oliver Drake, I mean, like, he got a save. That's going to be a messy situation. But I think Giovanni Gallegos, because Kim's first outing was pretty bad, even though he got a save. He gave up 2 runs. And I'm picking up Pedro Strop in Cincinnati in a deep league where I'm really just speculating here. Couple more bad outings from Iglesias, and I don't know. That's a guy they could turn it over to, but it could be someone else as well.
Trevor Gott. How can I forgot about Trevor Gott? He allowed a run on Saturday, but he got the save for the Giants. Tony Watson and Tyler Rogers combined to pitch the top of the 8th inning in that game. So just another situation that it's all the terrible teams, and I guess that makes sense because they just don't have a lockdown reliever. But you can see it now. The Orioles, the Giants, the Mariners are going to be quite frustrating.
Worth mentioning, it sounds like Gabe Kapler's already kind of starting to rub some of the Giants pitchers wrong with his shenanigans.
Oh my goodness. Who would have
I think
thought?
there was a quote, I think it was from Drew Smiley, talking about how he's kind of tried to play this, we don't know who's starting for us. It could be anybody.
So weird.
And I think Drew Smiley, after he appeared in that first game, was like, yeah, it really messes you up. You need to have a routine. You need to know what role you're going to be in. So, that obviously applies more to the starting pitchers, but I think it's a reminder that it's probably not worth chasing saves in the San Francisco Giants bullpen. They stink. They don't really have any good relievers anyway. And so if someone gets 2 saves in a row, fine, go get them. But I'm not going to go after anyone in the Giants bullpen.
I didn't go hard after Trevor Gott, and I let Tyler Rogers go in the few leagues where I was speculating on him for saves. I didn't go hard after Drake. Jose Alvarado pitched the day before, and Diego Castillo was away on paternity leave. So Drake got the save Saturday, and maybe he'll get a handful more, but I think those guys still will. I think Nick Anderson still will. I'm not ruling out one of them taking the reins eventually, but it's going to be messy. They're at least good, unlike the Giants guys, unlike the Mariners guys and the Orioles guys. They're
unlike Greg Holland.
And Alvarado did pitch like the
I mean, we'll see.
He's been pretty bad for a while now. A lot of walks, and it is the Royals, but Kennedy did have 30 saves last year.
I want to point out Alvarado did get like the closer's usage today. They were the home team. He pitched a tie game in the bottom of the 9th. So
I wouldn't drop him. He's looked really good so far.
I mean, he's awesome.
Yeah,
like that's the thing is Alvarado, Nick Anderson, like those guys are good anyway. And in a season like this where you're gonna need guys who are good, you're gonna need innings no matter what. And the number of viable starting pitching options has already dwindled, I think those guys might have more value than ever.
Hey, Frank, I also I believe that there's something going on in Washington that Doolittle really just didn't look good yesterday. So I do think Daniel Hudson, who was using the 9th inning, Doolittle in the 8th inning. I still think Will Harris is the best pitcher there, but Hudson is someone worth looking into. I know people are desperate for saves. So these were just names we're throwing out. And you mentioned, somebody mentioned a paternity leave, a player who was on paternity leave.
Diego Castillo was on paternity leave this weekend.
Somebody else was on paternity leave and came back after missing 1 game. So just keep that in mind. I'm not so sure why we just assume that Mike Trout is going to miss a week when his daughter.
It was just because
wife basically. Yeah.
I think it's partially because he talked about not coming back.
Yeah, but he's in. But he might miss one day.
But he said he's playing. Yeah, it's possible.
So, I just want to say.
I'm trying to remember who that was.
Yeah, me too.
Speaking of which, Zack Wheeler, by the way, looked very good over the weekend. Someone else that had paternity leave concerns. It's not really hard to look good against the Marlins. No, I'm just kidding. They did well.
First place, baby.
They did well against Aaron. Hey, Jesus Aguilar is back. You heard it here first. He looks pretty good.
Jesus Aguilar looks good. Yeah, 2 home runs.
All right, the biggest winners of the weekend. Adam, why don't you get us started here? Hit us with your biggest winner with a lot of baseball action this weekend.
Joey, going with some corner infielders. Joey Votto. Unfortunately, he was owned and rostered in more than 90% of leagues. I thought maybe that wouldn't be the case, but
which is just crazy, by the way. When I saw his ownership percent, I was like,
he was really high in the default rankings for CBSSports.com, especially in points leagues.
92%.
And he could be really good in points leagues. His plate discipline should still be good, but 2 home runs this weekend, hitting in the middle of a great lineup, even without Moustakas, or hitting second. Homered off a lefty on Friday. I have Eric Hosmer. I'll let Chris talk about him, but I poo-pooed everything, and he's off to a really good start. Yoshitomo Tsutsugo, I'm interested in. He did not start today, but if you're looking for anyone to become a regular for the Rays, I thought maybe he'd sit against lefties. He did not. He started on Friday against a lefty. He homered. I'm pretty sure he homered off Hyunjin Ryu. So he wasn't really someone I feel like we talked a lot about, but keep an eye on him. 28%. Rostered in 28% of leagues, Yoshitomo Tsutsugo, and Tommy Pham's got 4 steals. So, winner.
Yeah, I think that Padres in general are winners because personally, I didn't know how Jace Tingler, their new manager, was going to let them run on the base paths if he was going to be aggressive. But Manny Machado and Fernando Tatis, I believe, pulled off a double steal today. Jerks and Profar had a steal. I think that they're going to run quite frequently out there in San Diego. So I would say the arrow is pointing up for all of the base stealers out there on the West Coast. Chris, who's one of your biggest winners from the weekend?
It's Eric Hosmer. I think this might be maybe the single most important thing we saw this weekend, besides Justin Verlander, I guess. Eric Hosmer, it's only 8 batted balls. Excuse me. None of them have been hit on the ground.
Let's go, Chris. Let's get it.
I can't say for sure, but I would bet this is the first time in Eric Hosmer's career that he has gone 10 plate appearances without hitting a ball on the ground. He is one of the most extreme ground ball hitters in baseball. 4 line drives, 2 fly balls, 2 walks, 0 strikeouts, a home run, 2 doubles, 8 RBI, I believe, in the first 2 games of the season. He did get a weird day off on Saturday, but at the very least, Eric Hosmer is hitting the ball in the air. This is not a speculative thing. I don't want to say he's never going to hit another ground ball, and that would probably be a bad thing, unless he keeps having a 75% hard hit rate, I guess. Eric Hosmer, the changes have taken place. Whether they're going to make him a superstar, I think there's reason to be skeptical. I'm not going to say he is, but the only thing that was missing for him was the direction of contact. He needed to hit the ball in the air more. He's always hit the ball well. He's always had good plate discipline. He's doing that now, and I think it's entirely possible he could be a must-start first baseman all year as a result of it.
Yeah, I love the call on Eric Hosmer. The Padres, just in general, their lineup might, surprise some people this season, except for when Jerks and Profar is batting cleanup. What was that about? That was just very odd. Yeah. They dropped him to 7 today. It's worth noting, but the first 2 games he was batting cleanup for them. Scott, who is one of your, or multiple if you have them, winners from this weekend?
So the 3 biggest winners in terms of guys who are widely available. Like I could pick them up in my leagues. I mentioned 2 of them: Greg Holland. Forgetting his name. Brady Singer. Is
Brady
that it?
Singer. Yep.
Brady Singer of the Royals, the rookie pitcher who had a good debut, and Tyler Chatwood, who Chris mentioned earlier. Tyler Chatwood, as a reliever the last 3 months last year, multi-inning reliever at times, had a 2.76 ERA, 104 WHIP, and 10.7 K per 9 over the final 3 months last year. Has had walk issues in the past. Only issued 2 walks against the Brewers, striking out 8 in 6 innings. So that one should be high on the ad list as well. Other winners who, I didn't have a chance to add him, but maybe you do. I think it's a big, huge deal that Tommy Listella was in the lineup for the first left-hander that the Angels faced, Sean Manaea, on Saturday. Because if we had him down as an everyday player, he probably would have been must draft. I mean, after the year he just had, granted, we're not totally sure that he's the power hitter he looked like he was for the time he was healthy last year, but there's enough data backing at it that you take a flyer. There's enough data backing it that you take a flyer if you trust he's in the lineup, and he has been every day. So I think that's a big winner, Tommy Listella. Bradley Zimmer got a couple starts in the Cleveland outfield.
You look like you're
Didn't do
searching
much
a little
with
bit. So can you talk about Kyle Lewis, since I forgot to?
Hey, he's my winner.
I mean, Kyle Lewis, he hit a couple home runs. He struck out 6 times in 11 at bats. So he's really picked up where he left off last September in both the good and the bad. I don't know. I'd take a flyer on him in a 5 outfielder league if he was available, but otherwise probably not.
Yeah, I had Kyle Lewis as my biggest winner for the weekend. I mean, not one of the biggest winners, but he homered off of Verlander, and then he homered off Lance McCullers, so pretty damn impressive, homering off those 2 specific pitchers. Scott, would you drop Kyle Tucker for Kyle Lewis?
I'm not opposed to dropping Kyle Tucker, but I want to drop him for Kyle Lewis now.
I'll tell you who I dropped for Kyle Lewis. Shogo Akiyama, big loser, sat against the lefty, and he's batting 6th or 7th. So he's not leading off, and he's not playing every day, and that stinks.
The righty who took his place that day he sat against the lefty is now on the IL. It's worth noting. Though they did call up Aristides Aquino, and he could be the guy who platoons with Akiyama now. But I personally I don't like Kyle Lewis is the bottom line. I don't you have to have a really special ability on contact to survive the kind of strikeout rate he's showing yet again, and 2 more home runs doesn't really change the equation there for me.
Adam, I know you have to split out. Is there anything else you want to add from the weekend before we hit the break?
Yeah, it was a great weekend. I mean, my 2 favorite starting pitcher targets were awful. James Paxton, his velocity's down. He says it's a mechanics thing. Basically, he's not extending. I don't know what that means, but he's 7'15", so I guess it's harder for him. But it's really frustrating, and I don't have a lot of faith in him right now. Before the season started, he talked about this mechanics thing, so I wasn't shocked that he had a bad start. I think he threw about 42 pitches and had 14 foul balls. He just could not finish any hitter off. So Paxton, short-term concern, and considering the entire season is short-term, it's a little bit nerve-wracking there. I think he'll get it turned around. It's a mechanics issue for him, but how long do you have to wait? I don't know. Robbie Ray, for all the talk about him changing, he basically gave the single most Robbie Ray outing ever this weekend. He was brilliant for 3 innings. He fell apart in the 4th. He threw 1 million pitches. He says that, the new delivery, I'm still working out, trying to figure out how to slow things down, to figure out my mental cues, to go through kind of get myself back to where I'm in the position that I need to be in order to deliver a good pitch. So I guess call Robbie Ray a work in progress. Velocity was up and the stuff was filthy, but he was all over the place. So I was disappointed that Paxton and Ray, 2 of the pitchers I wanted the most, are off to really bad starts, but they could turn it around. I'm not super confident in starting either of them in week 2, to be quite honest, even though they're fairly high end.
Yeah, that definite concerns. And, there's a few other velocity concerns and specific pitchers that we want to get into, and we'll do that after the break. Some of the losers from this weekend, we'll do that here on Fantasy Baseball Today. We're back here on Fantasy Baseball today. Before we get back into it, I just want to remind you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Fantasy Baseball Today. Of course, youtube.com/Fantasy Baseball Today. The link is in the description as well. We either just exceeded 1,000 or we're close to 1,000. So again, thank you for everybody who has subscribed thus far. Let's break 1,000. Let's go for 2,000. Let's go for 5,000. Let's take over the world here. Fantasy
1 million.
Baseball Today, 1 million
That's
subscribers. Chris, throughout the break, you hit us with a very interesting stat on Eric Hosmer.
Yeah, I had to fact check myself. Eric Hosmer has, in fact, gone 2 games in a row without hitting a ground ball. It happened on September 3rd and September 4th of 2013. So I apologize for giving you fake news that Eric Hosmer had never gone 2 games in a row without hitting a ground ball. It happened 8 years ago.
Yes, a long time ago for Eric Hosmer. But again, still someone that you should be excited about. He's 75% owned in CBS Sports leagues right now. Some other velo concerns that I just wanted to bring up, and some guys that I consider losers from this weekend, Scott. Charlie Morton, I mean, look, we proclaimed this the show of Charlie Morton, and his velo was around 92 miles per hour, whereas last year he was up over 94 on average with his fastball. Madison Bumgarner was, I believe it was 87 miles per hour that Madison Bumgarner was at this weekend.
Yep.
Yeah,
And that's compared, like, the amount of the drop is significant.
Yeah, 87.9 miles per hour on the fastball. He was 91.7 miles per hour on the fastball last year. Mitch Keller, someone that Chris and I believe to some extent Scott as well, was excited about coming into the season. He was throwing 95 last year. Today he was averaging 92 miles per hour on his fastball. Zach Greinke, I've doubted him for long enough, and normally he does this throughout spring training. Maybe this is just his extended spring training, but today he averaged 87 miles per hour on his fastball, and last year he was around 90. Adam mentioned James Paxton as well. So Morton, Bumgarner, Greinke, Keller, Paxton, some serious velocity concerns. Scott, which one worries you the most?
It would probably be Keller, because I'm not sure there's enough there if he doesn't have velocity. 5 swinging strikes on his 87 pitches today. And look, he kept runs off the board, 1 earned run in 5 innings. And so before it was, he kept allowing runs, but the stuff looked great. And now the stuff doesn't look great, but he kept runs off the board. Yeah, that's going to be a problem. And he didn't really offer an explanation other than to agree that, yes, it was down. Okay. Obviously not dropping him yet, but another 2 starts like this, and particularly if the results take a turn for the worse, I think you seriously have to consider it. Bumgarner, yeah, I mean, we've seen a big drop from him in the past, and actually went up a little last year. He was a big bust for me heading into this season. This is going to make it easier. Like him and Greinke, though, they've been around so long, and they've overcome so much already that part of me doesn't want to bet against them. I mean, I'm more likely to do it from Bumgarner than Greinke, since I didn't really believe in him in the first place. But that's kind of where I am with them. I mean, Greinke just a couple years ago, he used to average 92 on his fastball, and then the last couple years it was 90, and the production didn't change at all. I wonder with the Rays, because Charlie Morton is on this list, and Blake Snell today went 2 innings. It was basically an opener. He threw 46 pitches after throwing 47 in his final spring tune-up start. So are they even extending him? What's going on here? Like the Rays, I feel like maybe they didn't have the same philosophy going into the shutdown as the other organizations, because their starting pitchers just don't seem on the same level as any other teams in terms of readiness. And I don't know that it's fair to single out Morton, but nonetheless, it's worrisome if you're invested in them. I mean, we'll see how Tyler Glasnow does in his first start. See if he's, because he was away from the team, I think, after everybody reported. He was away for a while. So yeah, that's something to monitor. I wish we had made a bigger deal of Snell. Looking back, I wish we had made as big a deal of Snell as we did about Walker Buehler, because I think it's going to be just as much of a concern for him moving forward. If he's not even built up to 50 pitches yet, like when are you going to get a 5-inning start from him?
Yeah.
Chris, do you dare bench Charlie Morton this week? He's at Atlanta, and mind you, we are recording this Sunday night, and the Atlanta Braves have 14 runs scored against the New York Mets right now.
Yeah, I was looking at I think it's Corey Oswalt for the Mets who came in relief, and he gave up like 9 hard hit balls to the Braves or something incredible in 4 innings. Look, the thing I always look at, like when we were talking about Patrick Corbin in his last tune-up start, and it was like, well, Patrick Corbin's velocity was down. It's like, have we seen this pitcher pitch at this velocity level and succeed? In Patrick Corbin's case, we have. We have seen Patrick Corbin pitch effectively in the high 80s, low 90s. You know, that he had that stretch in May and June of 2018 where he did that. Charlie Morton, he averaged 92.4 miles per hour with his fastball in the opener. He hadn't been below 94.2, I believe, with his four-seamer in any start going back to at least 2018. So that is where, yeah, you start to get concerned because we just haven't even seen him pitch at this level. So we have no idea if he can be effective at it. On the other hand, a couple of caveats apply. One, there's a new StatCast system. It's the same StatCast front-facing thing, but they upgraded all the back stuff, the technology, and it is possible that there are some calibration issues going on, and you know, maybe there are certain ballparks that aren't quite as accurate or still need. It's possible that that's going on, but with Charlie Morton, like it would require like a mile and a half per hour difference for us to not be concerned. So yeah, I would have trouble sitting him. On the other hand, the Braves, I think, could be one of the best offenses in baseball. And I think it's possible they could be the best offense in baseball. And so, yeah, it's risky.
It is definitely risky right now. I mean, it's almost like you want to take a wait and see approach with Charlie Morton, but he could come out the next game and be the Charlie Morton that we've seen the past couple of seasons, and then you miss out on that start.
I'm more concerned about Mitch Keller than Charlie Morton.
Yeah, I think that is definitely fair to say. Let's go rapid fire and hit on some notes from over the weekend, try and get to as many teams as we possibly can before we answer your emails. The Cincinnati Reds, we mentioned Joey Votto looked great. Luis Castillo and Trevor Bauer, both double-digit strikeout performances. And Sonny Gray was also great on opening day. It's worth noting that Josh Van Meter played second base today in Mike Moustakas' absence. So if you're in a deeper
and
league...
Moustakas is on the IL. I'm not sure if you mentioned that before.
Yeah.
And Senzel's not available. I would imagine if Senzel was available, he would have played one of those two spots, considering he is a natural second baseman.
For the Tigers, Joe Jimenez had 2 saves over the weekend. He was a little bit shaky on Sunday, but ultimately got it done. C.J. Cron hit 2 home runs over the weekend. Matthew Boyd was not good on opening day. 5 innings pitched, 4 earned runs, just 2 strikeouts with 8 swinging strikes. Chris, you hate to see it.
You don't love to see it, no. No, I'm not going to say that I'm ready to panic because, well, if you drafted Matt Boyd thinking that he couldn't have a start like this, you didn't know what you were signing up for.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this one doesn't really worry me. He threw his slider about as often as last year, and it had about the same whiff rate as last year. So I'm just going to chalk this one up as a bad start.
Yeah, this is like right in the middle of the list of concern. Like it's not more or less concerning than the average pitcher, I would say.
And it's worth noting that he went up against the fully loaded Reds offense when everybody was healthy.
# full squad.
Yeah, full squad was there. Hopefully they can get back again soon. For the Marlins, Sandy Alcantara, we mentioned, looked great on Friday. Honestly, I did not talk about this guy probably as much as we should have leading up to the season, but I think all the tools are there, Chris. I mean, 6'4", throws hard, upper 90s. He had the slider and the changeup working in that start. I am quite interested in him if he is available. Do you have anything to add?
He's kind of the Jorge Alfaro of pitchers.
Okay.
Except Jorge Alfaro makes a ton of really good contact. Sandy Alcantara is one of the best at limiting hard contact, so he's always going to run these super low BABIPs. And so the question is, can he be a slightly above average strikeout pitcher and a slightly below average walks pitcher? If he can, he's probably like a legitimate mid to low 3s ERA guy. It's just, I need to see more.
14 swinging strikes on Friday against a pretty good Phillies lineup as well. Jesus Aguilar had 2 home runs over the weekend. If you are desperate for a corner infielder, he is only owned in 16% of CBS sports leagues. Caleb Smith was quite bad, 6 walks on Saturday. Didi Gregorius, hit 2 home runs over the weekend, both Friday and Saturday. Aaron Nola was not great. Zack Wheeler, someone that we mentioned earlier, was very good. 7 innings pitched, just one earned run against the Miami Marlins. For the Mets, Edwin Diaz got a save. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, he got a save on Friday. He blew the save on Saturday. He allowed a home run to Marcell Ozuna with 2 outs left. With 2 outs in that game. Yes, Scott?
But the home run was not on the slider. It was on the fastball. He said the fastball was exactly where he wanted it to be.
Yeah, like it was a good pitch. It was like 4 or 5 inches off the plate. Marcell Ozuna is just swinging the bat incredibly well right now.
And Luis Rojas, the Mets manager, said he's not worried. So I'm not worried either. I think Edwin Diaz, particularly some of the volatility we saw from ninth inning guys this weekend, I feel pretty secure with him right now.
Steven Matz.
Right now. Sorry.
Steven Matz, someone that I mentioned, I thought looked great. 6 innings pitched, 1 earned run, 7 strikeouts. The velocity was up for him. The Atlanta Braves, Max Fried, 5 innings pitched, 2 earned runs, 2 walks, and 5 strikeouts. He only threw 2 changeups, something that I was paying attention to heading into the season. So we'll see if he ups that usage moving forward. The Rays were a mess as usual in their bullpen. We spoke about Morton. We mentioned Blake Snell. For the Toronto Blue Jays, Ken Giles got hurt. Shoemaker was solid. Ryu was not very good in his debut. Hit 3 walks on Friday. He made 29 starts last season. Only 3 starts did he have 3 or more walks in those 29 starts. So not really the Hyunjin Ryu that we're used to seeing on Friday, Scott.
Yeah, I don't really read much into that either. He just had a bad start, I think.
I agree.
The velocity was okay. I feel fine with Ryu still.
Scott, I saw you tweet about this today, actually. Carlos Carrasco was ridiculous on Sunday. Mind you, it was against the Kansas City Royals, but the velocity was on par with where it was back in 2018 when he still had like a sub 3.5 ERA, 10 strikeouts, 17 swinging strikes on 87 pitches. Very excited about Carrasco.
Yeah, and the opponent doesn't really matter to me in this instance. Like, what concerns I had about Carrasco coming into the season were pretty much all eliminated with this one start because the velocity was there. It was there deep into the game. They let him pitch deep into the game. All of this happening from the very first start, and he was great. So, the only lingering concern I have with Carrasco is, does he decide to opt out because of him being more of a health risk than certain other players? But, to a certain degree, that concern is in play for every single player in the majors. Do they opt out or not? So that doesn't even really register so much. I think Carrasco, you just got somebody you can count on here in him.
I do want to point out one thing as we were talking about the Rays. I kind of went through and just looked at a bunch of different pitchers. It does kind of look like everybody's velocity was down. Like Chaz Rowe was down about 1.5 miles per hour. I just looked at Nick Anderson was down about 1.5 miles per hour. Ryan Yarbrough looks like he was down about it was pretty consistent. And so I do wonder if there's something there where it's a calibration issue. Obviously, I wouldn't say for certain, but that'll be something to keep an eye on. And I just realized I don't even know if the Blue Jays home games are going to have StatCast data.
Right, because they're now the Buffalo Blue Jays.
Buffalo, and I have no idea if they have the Hawkeye. I would assume they do not have Hawkeye set up there, given that they don't even have the appropriate light settings to play night games on TV.
For the Chicago Cubs over the weekend, Ian Happ had 2 home runs. He's only 41% owned. Scott, I'm okay dropping Kyle Tucker for Ian Happ. Do you agree?
It depends if I need a starter or not. That would be like, I feel like Tucker's upside is considerably higher than Happ's. And I think there's still a good chance he forces his way into an everyday role. He came off the bench today, but hit another double. At some point, even Dusty Baker has to be won over. So, 3 outfielder league where it's just a guy I'm stashing away for upside. I'd still rather go Tucker than Happ. But I'd rather start Happ than Tucker right now.
Yeah, I hear you. I think the upside is pretty high for someone like Ian Happ as well. It's not as high as Kyle Tucker, I agree. But look, if Kyle Tucker's not playing now with Yordan Alvarez not around, I don't know if it's going to happen ultimately. So I am okay making that move. Corey Knebel pitched in the 7th inning on Friday, down 2-0, and he pitched in the 4th inning Sunday. Chris, are you okay dropping Corey Knebel?
Yeah, I think so. You know, it was a speculative ad anyway, and he'll have to earn a role.
For the Red Sox, no Alex Verdugo on Friday against the left-handed pitcher, and then on Saturday, he had 3 hits, 2 of which came off of a left-handed pitcher, and then he started on Sunday against a left-handed pitcher. So something you do like to see when it comes to Alex Verdugo. The Rockies, going from something you like to see to something you don't like to see, Scott.
The Rockies.
Yep.
The Rockies. Garrett Hampson only started once this weekend against a left-handed pitcher, and I don't know that that is going to change.
Well, there's a good chance it changes at some point. Players will get hurt. Players will be bad.
Yeah, all of this stuff, like if Garrett Hampson hits and the other guys don't, if Kyle Tucker hits and the other guys don't, you know, that's ultimately like managers can want to do what they want to do, but the players will dictate this stuff to at least a certain extent.
Right. And I think they played it. I think they played it basically like a platoon between Hilliard and Hampson in left field. That's how it worked out this weekend. So that appears to be the plan going in. But of course things are going to change. Like, I understand you can't bank on them changing as much in a 2-month season as you can in a 6-month season, but you know, things will change. Look at all that just changed today.
What's really stupid is Brendan Rodgers did he even get a single plate appearance this weekend? No, he didn't.
Chris, the Rockies hate young players.
It's amazing.
Speaking of young players, the antithesis is Nelson Cruz, who had 4 hits on Sunday, 2 home runs, 7 RBI, and 12 total bases. We tried to tell you on Nelson Cruz. I just wish I had more shares. Like, I have a lot of shares, but I just wish I had 100% exposure to Nelson Cruz. Chris, how did we go 53 minutes into the show and we did not mention Lucas Giolito? That is a terrible job by me. I buried the lead. He was god-awful on Friday, but he was going up against the Twins.
Yeah,
so
the
it's like,
Twins
how much do you take away from it?
It's one start. It's against the Twins team that, in case you forgot, set the major league record last year for home runs in a season. They probably won't break that record this year, although, you know, with Nelson Cruz, you never know.
You never know.
Yeah, look, it's possible that this was a sign of bad things to come, but if the velocity was there and that was a big key for his breakout last year, I'm not particularly worried about it.
The last thing that I wanted to mention, Dinelson Lamet looked really, really strong on Saturday. His velocity was actually up. For everyone that were talking about being down, 97.7 miles per hour on his fastball, by far a career high. 41 of his 80 pitches were the slider. So maybe he's going the Patrick Corbin route, and if he does that, only 1 walk in this game, 5 innings pitched, 8 strikeouts against a solid D-backs lineup. I'm pretty interested in Dinelson Lamet right now. It's only 1 start. Don't want to overreact, but was very pleasantly surprised by that. We'll answer some of your questions starting right now from our Apple Podcast reviews. This comes from the Ketchup and Peeps guy. Is there anything I need to know about this?
Yeah, did someone send it to us, or was this like a meme?
Does someone actually put ketchup on a peep? Is that like
Peeps with ketchup?
I feel like maybe somebody recommended it to us, but could be wrong.
Yeah,
it's just it sends shivers up my spine.
I agree. He went into his 12-team roto draft with the number 2 pick, thinking it was a points league. For my pick, I drafted Garrett Cole as fast as I could, then was heckled by the other owners for taking him too high in a roto league. Anyway, I ended up with Garrett Cole and then Jose Ramirez for my first 2 picks, compared to Christian Yelich and Steven Strasburg. Should I feel like a fool, or does this not seem as bad as I think it is? Mind you, he sent this in on Thursday. Scott, Jose Ramirez looked pretty good today.
Yeah. No, it could go well for you. I don't like it. It certainly wasn't a by the book pick, Garrett Cole, number 2 in a roto league, but there's like, I'd seen it happen before. And Jose Ramirez could be somebody who next year we're talking about drafting 2nd overall. So
Yeah, I mean,
it could go totally fine for you.
If you could guarantee Jose Ramirez would be there every single time at pick 23, I might have considered taking Garrett Cole at number 2 every time, but that's just because I think Jose Ramirez was one of the best values in fantasy.
Absolutely. We'll get to your emails. Fantasybaseball@cbsi.com. This one comes from Jeremy, dear Gaylord, CC, Cliff, and Corey. I know who they are, but what do they have
I
in
know who
common?
the pitchers are. I don't know what they have in common.
Look, you guys are more likely to know than I am.
Are they Cleveland Indians Cy Young Award winners?
That's
CC did win
yeah,
when he was there.
That might be it. Are you concerned with the poor performances of aces Charlie Morton, Giolito, or Jose Barrios? We spoke about the other two, Morton and Giolito, quite a bit. Could the shortened spring training / summer camp have a negative effect on their timing, rhythm, and overall performance for the next few starts? And save that one after this. We'll get to the two-parter here. Scott, we spoke about the other guys. Any concern over Jose Barrios? His velocity was actually up tremendously this weekend.
Yeah. He just got hit hard. Could the quick ramp up have an effect on pitchers? Yes. To what degree were we seeing that happen this weekend? It's really hard to say. With the velocity's down, and certainly in the case of Blake Snell, where he came in knowing he was going to be limited to a certain number of pitches, then it's easy to put it on that, the hurried buildup. But I mean, first time through at the start of every season, a lot of good pitchers have bad starts. That's just how it plays out. And like, good pitchers have bad starts sometimes. And I think in the case of Barrios, I think in the case of Giolito and Ryu, I feel pretty confident saying that's all it was.
Yeah, I agree. Like, if someone in your league is freaking out about Jose Barrios right now, I mean, especially, we're talking about everyone's velocity being down. His velocity was up. So that is actually something I am excited about. He was going up against the White Sox, whom I consider one of the best lineups in the American League. The second part of this question, Chris, do you still believe Shane Bieber will have an ERA over 4?
Frank, do you still believe Franmil Reyes will lead baseball in home runs?
Yeah, sure.
Scott, do you still believe that Corey Knebel will have more saves than Josh Hader, or that Austin Riley will lead the Braves in home runs? No, these were bold predictions. These were not, this is the thing that will definitely happen, and I stand by this 100%. No, it was a bold prediction. It is inherently an unlikely thing that you believe could happen. So, yeah, I still believe Shane Bieber could have an ERA over 4, although now he's made, 7% of his starts for the season, so it is slightly less likely to happen than it would have been before his start.
Yeah, 14 strikeouts, 1 walk on Friday.
That's fine.
Whatever. That'll help the
problem.
cause a little bit.
Look, the problem is nobody made contact with him, so of course he had a good start.
Well, you know what? Anyone who pitches against the Kansas City Royals is going to have a pretty good chance of striking out a lot of their batters. This next one's from Jack. Hey, guys, I got offered Matt Boyd for Corbin Burns and Mitch Keller in a 10-team head-to-head categories league with quality starts. I'm not especially deep at starting pitcher, but I do have Josh James as a sleeper, even if I deal Burns and Keller. Do I make this move for Boyd?
Boyd is not enough of a sure thing, I think. I think they're all kind of the same guy to a certain extent. Matt Boyd's just a slightly more proven version of that, but that slightly more proven version, still wasn't all that useful for most of last season in fantasy. So I would take 2 bites at I guess seeing Mitch Keller pitch maybe changes my
Keller, and who's the other one?
Corbin Burns. Yeah, having seen Mitch Keller's velocity be 3 miles per hour lower than it was last year, yes, I would do it. But maybe try to pull that deal off quickly before.
Yeah, I almost always take the 1 when it's a 2-for-1, and there are enough questions about Burns remaining too.
Sure.
Yeah, I'd take the deal.
Yeah, and he mentioned that quality starts as a category too. I just expect Boyd to have a consistently higher pitch count and likely go deeper into games than both Mitch Keller and Corbin Burns. I just
want to point out 71.4% hard hit rate for Shane Bieber. Unsustainable. He's a fraud.
Let's answer this final question from Carl. He likely needs it before he sets his lineup tomorrow. Rank in order who you'd rather have in next week's lineup in a head-to-head points league. Austin Voth for 2 against the Blue Jays and the Marlins. Adrian Hauser for 2 against the Pirates and the Cardinals. Shoemaker against the Nationals. Pablo Lopez for 2 against the Orioles and the Nationals. Luke Weaver for 2 against the Padres and Dodgers. or Sandy Alcantara for 1 against the Orioles? What do you think, Scott?
Well, I do have top 10 sleeper pitchers for week 2 up on the site, so you could check that out. I would say of those choices, Adrian Hauser would be my preference. He's actually number 1 on that list, and because he's making the 2 starts, you know, I like Shoemaker for the 1. I would like Alcantara, considering it's the Orioles for the 1, but you'd rather have the 2, and I have faith in Hauser's skill set.
I agree. I like Adrian Hauser. You all right with that, Chris?
Yeah, I'd put Pablo Lopez number 2 because he did ask us to rank them.
That is true.
And it's a head-to-head points league. I would go Lopez, Weaver, and probably Alcantara.
After Hauser, you would put Hauser first.
Yes, Hauser, Lopez, Weaver, Alcantara.
Yeah, I like that order as well. I don't have any issues with that. The final question is one that I will ask you guys myself. Will I ever learn to put suntan lotion on my face when I go outside?
See, this is one that I'm an incredibly forgetful person. I literally forget to close the refrigerator probably, I would say on average 3 times per day. And so luckily I'm not a person who needs suntan lotion all that much because I don't get burned. Obviously, you know, I probably do need it to not get cancer, but just in terms of the burning, I do pretty well. So, you know, the question was about you, but obviously I'm the protagonist in life's story. So I forgot the question.
Will I ever learn to put suntan
forget.
lotion on? Yes. Look, I'm never going to learn. I complained a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago. I went to the beach. I didn't put my lotion on, and I looked like a tomato. And what do you know? It's opening weekend. And if you're watching on our YouTube channel, you see that I once again look like a tomato.
Looks like you went to a day game.
I went out fishing early in the morning today.
Could have been a day game.
I am beat, guys. All right, we're going to wrap it up there. It was a fun weekend of baseball, and hopefully we'll have a lot to talk about again on tomorrow's show. For Scott and Chris, I am Frank. Thank you all for listening and watching Fantasy Baseball Today on our YouTube channel. We'll be back again tomorrow. Bye-bye.